Good afternoon, and welcome to the iGaming Next podcast. We are celebrating the new year here in the podcast with Robin Reed. How are you doing today?
Hi, Per, and what a pleasure and honor to be here and celebrate the new year with you. I'm feeling great. Been up working all night as usual, but I'm feeling very much looking forward to be on the show with you and talk about what we both care about the most, the iGaming industry.
Yes, that's absolutely right. So you pulled an all-nighter today, I heard. Yeah, you just went to get some sun before this.
No, it was a hidden brag. I had a few hours of sleep, but things are going well at the moment, so working really hard and with pleasure.
Yeah, exciting stuff. So it's a new year. I mean, 2021, Robin, and we are just a couple of days into this year, and everyone was celebrating that, like, yeah, screw 2020, and now it's 2021. It's gonna be a lot better, and then immediately it started with like the Western democracy is falling in the States, and things are not exactly looking better on this end. But I must ask you, Robin, like in the new year, it's a new year, new Robin. What are your New Year's resolutions?
I met a very interesting person a couple of years back. She is a life coach, and she works with inspiration from everything from Buddhism to modern therapy, and I've learned a lot from this person. And there is things such as diets, such as being at peace with the world and self-growth. And I guess it comes a time in every business leader's life where these things start to occupy you. You work so hard, there is stress, so you start to look into the more spiritual side. So on my end, it is to actually grow spiritually, and it sounds a bit flamboyant, but I'm really enjoying sort of the self-growth journey at the moment, and having sort of a life coach, and something I recommend everybody, especially those who are CEOs and business leaders and works under a lot of pressure, to look into feeling completely at peace with yourself and the surroundings, and joy and happiness and those things. I'm really enjoying that journey.
Yeah, that's awesome. Actually, I love that you're saying that, Robin, because I think something that generally is becoming more popular and also more accepted in general is kind of taking help from others to better your life and to understand your thoughts, and therapy in general. I think is becoming more and more popular, and I'm of the opinion that that everyone needs therapy, or everyone needs a life coach that you're like you are doing, for example. And it's cool to hear that that you are choosing that route in general, because there's so much to learn, right? And it's so many people who maybe have too big egos, or they think they do everything right, or they maybe have unresolved things that they're not even aware of. But what would be I want to just follow up on that. Like, what are the biggest upsides to you to work with a life coach?
We have fitness coaches, we have nutritionists, we have business coaches. We take inspiration and advice from so many places, and I'm also involved in a football club, and the topic of a mental coach has come up many times. These young athletes live under tremendous pressure when they go and play in front of in the full stadiums, and so why not spend more time paying attention to sort of that side of things, your mental fitness. And the key takeaways for me has been, one, we never stop growing. No matter how complete you feel one year, when you look back a few years later on, then you think, oh, if I only had known this and that and been the version I am today. And why not accelerate that process? Why not learn from people that has met so many interesting people and so many interesting life journeys, and sort of turbocharged that development in people before? And you can't be too concrete, but I think things like mind-sighting other people, being much better at understanding the perspective of other people when you do choices yourself, and understanding the sociology around you, and really trying to sort of add value around you as you go through life yourself, I think is very interesting topics.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think it was the psychologist Jordan Peterson who got the question, like, what is happiness? What is happiness in life? And he said, oh, what is the purpose of life? And he said, the purpose of life is to it's not a goal or anything like that. The purpose of life is to find yourself on a path where you become a little bit better every day. And it's not about being a complete person, because you'll never be a complete person. It's just about a little bit better every day. And if you find yourself on that path, then you have found your purpose, kind of thing in life. So happy to hear that, Robin. Speaking about speaking about looking back and improving and constantly taking the next step forward and evolving, I wanted to kind of take a step back a little bit, Robin, because obviously you founded GiG a couple of years back. I think it's like 10 years back or something along those lines. You built that company to incredible heights at some point, and you were involved there before moving on to obviously new products and stuff like that. And I wanted to ask you kind of, if you look back on your time at GiG, can you evaluate your own time from almost like a third person perspective? Like how was your time there, and how did you accomplish the things that you did there, and then how do you see the company moving on after Robin?
It was a hell of a ride, and I have to correct you, because I wasn't the only founder. I had Frode Fagerli with me, and many other people that invested early on and that helped bring up the company. We came from the perspective of a player. We were poker players ourselves, and went into the industry wanting to improve the customer orientation of the industry. And I think we pursued that sort of in everything we did, and it led to success. We had, I think, 16, 17 quarters in a row with consecutive growth and sequential growth, and went from strength to strength. One thing I've learned, though, is that I remember back when I was a poker player, and I once saw a coaching video with Phil Galfond, which I look very much up to in poker, and he was asked by someone, when you play those nosebleed games and when you play the best in the world, how can you actually win money given that there is rake to the house, and why are you not just all exchanging money and over a long time losing to the house? And he answered that he has found that even the best poker players in the world, they don't play optimal under two circumstances. That is one, when they are very unlucky, when they're running bad, when they're losing, and they start to deviate from their A game. The second one is when they're winning a lot, when things are going really well, then they're deviating from their A game. And so I try to sort of just stay in between, in the middle at all times. And I guess the best poker player is the person that is able to do that. And I really took that advice with me in life, I think. And when you look back at GiG, I think the company grew at one point. I think the market cap was about 500 million, and the company went from strength to strength. But one thing we didn't pay much, enough adequate attention to, I would say, is regulation and the impact that had. And 2018 was a very interesting year for GiG. We sort of had gone. 2017 had been fantastic. We had gone from, I think, 56 million in revenues to 120 something, and things were going really well. And in 2018, we started pursuing a range of projects. We had Hard Rock coming up in the United States, so we were getting our platform regulated in the United States. We went after the sportsbook, so there was a sportsbook license as well, both land-based and offline. There was terminals, there was over-the-counter betting. At the same time, AML4 was really starting to get an effect on the industry. UKGC had really started sort of enforcing stricter regulation. Sweden was about to regulate from January 2019. GDPR was coming. Payment Services Directive 2 was coming. And there was just so much regulation going on. Well, at the same time, the company was significantly expanding, doing its own platform, trading engine, odds, remote gaming server and games, whilst also doing our own marketing and B2C. So there was a lot going on at the same time, and I think it was a sound strategy, and I think we executed well on it, but we didn't factor in just how much attention that would soon need to be deterred to meet regulatory requirements. And in hindsight, when we backtrade, I would have done less projects, understanding the implications of the regulation that came. With that said, Q4 2018 was the best financial performance the company had. It was an all-time high. There was you need to adjust for a 2 million one-off that was in the same quarter the year before, but it was the best quarter the company has ever had. And at the point we were electing a new board, we were going to do a new listing in Stockholm, and it was quite sad to see how we were sitting in a board meeting in January, whereas I think we should have celebrated the best quarter the company has ever had, but it was actually quite a bad atmosphere. There was new board members, there wasn't a good chemistry. Fast forwarding to the next meeting, I think that was in April or so, the atmosphere was even worse, and it was clear that there wasn't a good fit here. So it was time to handshake and move on. Yeah, I think it is sad that even though there was all these changes coming, and of course the company would see a dip and would need to replace some revenues with new revenues, and would be hard work coming forward. I think it is sad that I didn't manage to foster a culture where everybody, even at the highest level, was in the same boat, and where we pulled together through. With that said, the other question you asked is, how do you see GiG going forward? I am very positive about the prospects of the company, even though I don't have the insights anymore about what's going on day to day in the business and precisely what they're doing. I do know that the commercial team that was put together back in 2018 with James King and Ben Clements, and these guys, they've been given the time now to really get the process together and get the structure together, and they're delivering sales upon sales, which is very encouraging. And I think the company should have a good future. Hope to see a Q4 where they are profitable on a bottom line level. I think they should be, but I don't know. And it's going to be very exciting to see in February.
Yeah, it seems like GiG kind of took one step back, so to say, and divested obviously their B2C, and they gave focus on their platform. I think the strategy seems to be a lot that they are focusing on bringing land-based casinos into the online environment, which obviously was accelerated now by COVID. So it seems that the company were quite well timed in that transition. And like you're saying, I spoke to James King actually yesterday. We spoke. He's a great person in general. He's been on the podcast as well.
Absolutely, fantastic guy.
Yeah, and it seems like those kind of key hires, especially when the company is making that type of transition into B2B, and the B2B sales side of things becomes so important. Just an individual like that can really push an entire organization, even a big listed company. A key hire like that can really lift the whole organization. Again,
and we have to lift up other people as well. So in 2018, I believe it was, we had a capital markets day where we presented a strategy that the niche was to help especially land-based clients transition online. And at the time, not only James were hired, but also we started hiring in fantastic people in the technology department: Jonathan Gauci, Chris Arms, Stephen Borge, and set out to complete the refactoring project and the GiG Core platform V2. And I think a lot of the success you're seeing now is coming from the work of these people and how they've been able to really make technology that should at this point be very state of the art and up to speed, and give them that increased bandwidth to now take on board more and more clients. So very positive about the fact that at least that part of the strategy they have pulled through with. The sale of B2C, I think, was a huge mistake. They were sitting with a brand that is performing great, and it was sold very cheap. And you could easily have gotten 20 million euro profits out of that brand in 2021. So that would defend the market capitalization of GiG alone. And But they wanted to focus on B2B. Personally, I think the company should have still done B2B, but focused on B2C. And that was, of course, a very different direction and fair game. I wish them all the best luck, and I'm sure the B2B business will do really well.
Yeah, and it's quite because they divested risk at kind of the low point of the industry in 2019 when the multipliers were not that great in these type of transactions. I think risk was divested at like a 5 times multiplier or something like that on the EBITDA.
Something like this. Yeah.
And we just talked before the podcast here now that it was just announced the other day that Entain is acquiring NLabs. And on the opposite side of the argument here, Nathan, we talked about that valuation is a lot higher than that, obviously, and maybe even questionably too high. What's your thoughts on NLabs being acquired by Entain?
I think, and you need to see that transaction in context with the Coolbet transaction that happened a little while back as well. And I think what is really interesting to me is that, I think the company is sound and good. I've been paying attention to NLabs for many years, and it's a strong company. And it also seems that Coolbet now has broken into profitability and they have done something different. And it is a company that is well appreciated by its customers. But when you look at the prices for these, it's clear that companies are paying a full price. And these are smart people that are acquiring these companies. And when you're looking at the multiples, that tells me something. COVID has led to a fantastic growth for at least online casinos and poker rooms, and sort of changed consumer habits worldwide into a more sort of favorable landscape for iGaming operators, I would say. And there has been the fear that sort of the 20-25% sort of revenue growth that you would naturally see from COVID would decline again once the COVID pandemic is over, and that has sort of left some investors worry about the longevity of these multiples that you're currently seeing. But I find it very interesting that Entain, arguably one of the strongest managements in the industry, then is willing to pay such a full price for NLabs, because that tells me something about their mid and long-term perspective on the industry from the numbers they are seeing, and that I find very interesting.
Yeah, because now we didn't know exactly. I think there was the multiple now on NLabs was something between 10 to 12. All right, so we are up there again on kind of the 2018 and before levels where the multiples were on a similar level, right?
Yeah, I think if I recall correctly, the transaction was about the 250 million, and that was at the run rate of 20 million in Q3, I guess, and with an adjusted EBITDA of something like 6.5 million. And then you start to talk about the quite high multiple again from primarily online operator in relatively small markets. So I find it very interesting, but of course a good fit to Entain and their global expansion. But financially, it tells you that they are very confident in how the value will develop.
Yeah, I'm thinking back now actually, because last time I saw you in person, Robin, the last summer in Spain. You told me something that I have told so many people, and I've said it so many times in the podcast as well, which is the fact that we talked about investments in the iGaming industry, and it seems that the iGaming industry is in a better place now than it was a year ago, perhaps. And you told me that investors are generally looking for recession-proof investments. That's if you're in a recession-proof industry. Investors look positively on that, especially in uncertain times like this, of course. But then you told me as well that investors are now also looking into pandemic-proof investments.
Yes.
And the iGaming industry is both. I thought that was such an interesting argument, because you don't see that in many industries, that you have industries that are immune to both a pandemic and the recession, and the pandemic-proof investments have never even been thought about before this pandemic hit. But it's certainly something that investors are not going to forget as we move forward.
No, and it would be gross misconduct to do that. And if you the short-term share price, at least in the smaller cap companies, is always very fluctuated based on sort of the retail segment and day traders and so forth. But obviously, it is the large money that is ultimately moving the share price of the companies and of the sectors in the long term. And when you look at some of these players, the people that are managing the money, they only have so much time, and there are so many companies they need to follow, and there is so much influx of funds to some of these capital to some of these funds that obviously they rather want to put their money into something that grows steadily and where there isn't sort of a major risk that needs to make you alert all the time. And now we have seen what can happen with a COVID pandemic, and who knows whether it's going to come a new pandemic 15 years from now with a new virus, and how well prepared we're going to be, and whether it's going to be a more mean virus or not. So that's of course something that you need to factor in now when you're seeing what happened to the share price, both up and down. So of various companies. So the iGaming industry has certainly, if you look at the multiples, once there was a lot of regulatory changes and a lot of uncertainty, and many investors chose to be on the fence, it has sort of forced people to come back and really consider iGaming as a viable long-term investment again. And I think that's partially what's driving the share price up, not only the actual value and the financial performance today, but more that the industry has gotten a better reputation as an investment object.
Yeah, and then so that's like the positive news, right? But then on the opposite end of that spectrum, something that I hear a lot when I talk to the head of investment relations in some of the listed companies is the fact that the all-time highs on the stock market in the iGaming industry was somewhere around 2015. But despite that, many of the listed iGaming companies are still setting all-time highs in 2020.
Correct.
And the reason for that, they say, is that the investors are the question of ESG, basically ethical investments, are becoming much more important now to the investors. And as the time goes on, it's becoming more and more important all the time. And that raises the question of just sustainability of the industry. Like, what does the industry need to do to be seen from a better light from the investors?
I think it needs to be honest and innovative, and I think we need to admit that there has been issues within the industry and a track record. Like many other industries, there has been there has been practices and activities and whatnot that we have to do better. And ESG is becoming more and more important for investment managers and funds and investors in general. And I think they will look at the sharper eye on the iGaming industry with this going forward as well. And the only way we can deal with that is to innovate. We need to ensure that the services we are delivering is even more entertaining, even more fair, even more open, even more honest. And I think there is a lot of innovation going on in that regards. We also need to work with the governments. We need to work with the organizations. There is a lot of regulation going on at the moment. There is new challenges, online iGaming, privatization, and so forth of many governments. It's going to take time to find their foothold, and I think we need to work very closely with these people and these organizations when developing these frameworks, so that we don't alienate parts of the industry and create a huge black market, while at the same time we're able to create a framework that actually allows companies sort of the freedom of resource to focus on how they're going to innovate on their services. So there's
a lot that needs to be done, so to say. But a lot of times you hear the industry kind of beating its chest and saying, we are scrutinized so hard now, regulatory wise, and with KYC checks, AML, all of the things that it's almost impossible to have players that are harmfully playing for large amount of money, at least in certain markets like Sweden, where obviously with deposit limits and so forth. But do you think we are there as an industry, or are we far away from, first of all, solving the problem of player responsibility, and secondly, then to change the perception of the industry? Are we ready to change the perception of the industry? Or would we be are we not there yet? Like,
it's going to take a long time. Gambling has existed for thousands of years, and it's going to exist for many thousand years to come. And this is going to take more than a year or 2 or 3. And it doesn't help for either regulators or for the industry or myself or anybody else to cry for the sick mother. We need to look at what the future is going to be like, and we need to embrace it. And I think the industry is doing a good job. I find, even what has just happened over the last 12 months, when I'm speaking with people now, and I'm seeing the level of sort of how professional and many of the professionals has become in the industry, and sort of how they're working with VAPs, how they're working with customer services. The shift has happened. Now it is about sort of obtaining more and more skills, more and more learnings, developing more and more software, and doing it better and better. But the paradigm shift has already happened. We are in iGaming V3.0, and I think the industry is heading towards a better place.
Yeah, and it happened quick as well. It feels like I guess would you agree that like the Swedish regulation was like the wake up call for the industry in that regard?
No, I think I think there was 2 wake-up calls. I think one was, in fact, the UKGC, and I think the other one was the repealing of PASPA and how the American market opened up. I think that really put regulation on the agenda. Of course, many of the companies in Europe were sort of traditionally Maltese licensed companies who had a Swedish origin. So when Sweden regulated, that also brought a lot of reform. But as a whole, I think it was the US and the UK that brought this forward. What I find very interesting, something I wouldn't spotted 2 years ago, an argument I never brought up, but things I've been thinking about in that respect, is that sort of how was the iGaming industry able to relatively quick sort of turn around the ship and find new ways and new practices. And I think it stems from these companies having been in very high growth scenarios for many years. So you basically had managements and you had people, although they didn't have to factor in that level of regulation before, they were experts in change management. They were experts in rapid growth. They were experts in handling that. And so when such a large change came, even though it was a different type of change, it wasn't necessarily what leads to growth day one, they were fully ready to sort of embrace that change and move forward. And that's a skill set that has sort of spread throughout the iGaming industry, which I think is very valuable.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, it's such a dynamic industry, right? So there's always things changing. There's always new regulation in that market or another market opening up. Or there's never a calm moment, let's say. And it's also very young.
It's never boring. Right? It's never ever boring.
That's something that you should know. We don't work in a boring industry. That is definitely true. Not for the faint of heart. Let's say that. But so I think, I mean, in general, it's all well and good that the industry kind of went through this change and kind of these wake up calls, as you were mentioning, and to better itself and to better take care of the problematic gambling and to seriously as an industry take this question seriously. But then the next phase, in my opinion, is then how the industry is being perceived by the general population, by the person next door, right? So I was in Sweden during the holidays, and my sister that I stayed with, she has a very different perception of the industry than what we have, for example. Because obviously, the fact of the matter is that most people don't play online casino, but they are very much aware of the online casino industry with the massive amount of advertisement that they see on a day-to-day basis. And the messaging is sometimes very aggressive, right? It's like, win big, like we draw now and we draw your winnings, and it's all about the big win, so to say. And most people understand that that is not the reality of playing online casino. Most people don't win big, let's say. So my question is a little bit on, it seems to me that the industry has a perception problem based on that type of targeted marketing, which have traditionally targeted kind of the problem players. They have been targeting those problematic gamblers. And you've seen a little bit lately as well that some organizations, I think Betsson is a good example of that, they're trying to find other ways to market their products. I know that Betsson are launched this like sports show where they are talking about the next football games, and they're analyzing a lot, and they are basically bringing content to the market that gives genuine value. And in a digital environment, that is kind of how you do marketing these days. You want to bring content that people actually want to see, so to say. So do you think also that a big key to kind of securing a sustainable future for the iGaming industry is also through the marketing strategies of the operators?
Yes, I'm following your reasoning, and I agree to a lot of it. I think what we're often forgetting when we're talking about the perception of the iGaming industry is that there is also a lot of positive connotation in sort of culture and mainstream media. Look at the movies, Hangover, Vegas. There is a lot of movies sort of where we're presenting how fun it can be, and I think I would start in that end. I would ask myself not only sort of what material value we are providing, whether it's a bigger bonus or a faster cash out or a better game, but I would also ask ourselves sort of which immaterial value, which emotional value do we actually add, and why has people been gambling since the dawn of mankind, and why will they continue to do it forever? And that's what we need to focus at. Myself, I know that if I'm with a group of friends and I'm in a city where there is a casino, and we're going out to a nightclub that night, and we're dropping by the casino on the way, I know I will have a good time. Generally, people are in a happy mood, and you wouldn't play reckless. You're next to your friends. It's a social experience, and so that's. I think we need to sort of embrace that value of it. We need to create more social experiences. We need to create experiences where it's sort of that feeling, sort of the exhilarating immersion that you get from these products are embraced much better, and we need to build on that rather than making it faster and making it bigger and making it more bigger bonuses. So and I think you're starting to see it in the industry. It's coming from two angles, not only from the iGaming industry, it's also coming from the video gaming industry, where you have companies such as EA Sports, where you can basically put in money and gamble to get a loot pack and a better player that you can sell again, and if you get a better player, you have a better team that you can show off to your friends. So I think a lot of more of these creating suspense, creating excitement, creating exhilarating immersion is coming, and that's where we need to focus at, because then people would more identify the value of the product we're delivering.
Yeah, it's interesting what you're saying, and I think the key seems to be to make the gaming industry entertaining. And I spoke to Jenny Nilsson, who's heading Spear, the Swedish industry organization, yesterday, and we agreed a little bit that we think that the vision of the iGaming industry as an industry should be that if I am a player and I play on a casino and I happen to lose, I should still feel that it was worth the time. Yes. I think that's a nice way of seeing it, and I think that's what you were saying as well. When you go to the casino with your friends after a night out, and after a couple of gin and tonics or whatever you like to drink. But you go. Yes, I'm good at reading people. That's right. And their favorite.
Henrik with cucumber.
Henrik with cucumber and a little bit of pepper, maybe. Let's see if you want to spice it up.
Marvin's gin tonic from Buddha Man. That was my favorite all time.
That's the one. That's the one. Yes. So when you go then to the casino after going to Buddha Man and having Marvin's gin and tonics that are wonderful, and you play there in the roulette table and you have fun. You win together or you lose together or whatever, and it goes a little bit up and down, and the excitement of that. Then you go out to the casino and you felt that was really fun. Even if you lost, and that should be the goal of the iGaming industry, and I think that's what the industry messaging need to be as well. This is entertainment that we are providing, right? It's not that like play with us and you will win big. Like that is not the messaging that is going to give sustainability to the industry. Then we are targeting a very niche part of the population, which is not sustainable for the future, right?
Couldn't agree more. And I think what we need to do now is we need to get the industry has been working on back office for the last 2-3 years. People have had to devote most of their resources to comply with a lot of changes, in which is necessary in many ways, not always. But now the attention need to come back to the front end, to the actual user experience, to the value we're giving customers, innovation. There has barely been any innovation over the last 3 to 5 years in this industry, and that needs to change now.
Yeah. So we have something to work on, both on the marketing side of things, but then also in how we then perceive and how we build the product itself. And I think this is an interesting subject, because obviously now you are involved in a different company with Ichiban, obviously, and who have launched some really cool product, and your new operator. And it seems that product has found success immediately, and it's so interesting to me, because I mean, I'm not an expert in products or how operators succeed or not, and these things. But what I hear a lot is that it's very difficult in this day and age to launch an operator and succeed. This is what people keep saying to me, at least. I don't know if how much that is true or whatever, but it seems that you guys were able to kind of penetrate the markets that you're entering with some really innovative side on the operator side. Can you talk a little bit, like, what is it behind that success, and go a little bit more in detail, because I'm so bad at explaining on the operator side. You obviously know it much better than me.
So I will answer to that, but first I gotta admit, Pierre, that I've kind of punked you a bit, because everybody that worked with me in the communications department in GiG, they know that when we have all hands meetings and these type of things, they always wanted to sort of pre-prep me with the questions, and I thought it was always better to sort of let employees and whatever just ask questions so that I had to answer on the spot, and because it leaves it more genuine and honest, and therefore people are more engaged. And so when we had our preparation and said we were going to talk about the industry and these things, I didn't bring up one of the topics I wanted to tell you, because I will make a world announcement here on iGaming Next that I'm actually going to be involved in a new company. It's called Quantum, and it's a B2B company. Wow. And we are going to tackle just the topics that we talked about, provide a platform, a software that can bring innovation back to the iGaming industry. And that has been sort of the main goal of what I have been involved with lately. And that work is already ongoing, and it's super exciting, and I'm having the time of my life, and there is coming some really good people to the company working with it. And so that's coming, so stay tuned. There's going to come more information about that, but then you heard it first here on iGaming Next. Then when it comes to actually Ichiban and the operator, so we needed to create critical mass for what we want to disrupt, which is innovation, and which is social in particular. And I don't agree that you shouldn't start an operator these days. I think if Elon Musk listened to the same, then he wouldn't have started a car company that is now the most valuable in the world. It is always about taking the industry forward. It is always about innovating. It is always about doing things better. And with Ichiban, I can also tell you that in the second months of operation, it was already profitable and on a 7-digit NGR, and I've never seen anything like it before. So that sort of speaks to the testament that you can indeed absolutely start an operator in.
But why? How come that you managed? What is it that made it profitable and others are not profitable after 2 months?
No, so when I've helped them, what I've worked on is innovation and incremental innovation. The goal there is to do something on the social aspect, but to do that, basically to fix the multiplayer, you need to fix the single player first. And so we started just building a state-of-the-art casino platform for end users. We wanted a fast site. We wanted to have all the hygiene factors, good UI and UX. However, we have also done a few innovations in there, and especially around the mobile experience and how things are presented in the game stage page, with an iframe overlay and functionality displayed on top of the game. But more importantly, there is a lot of intelligence into the product. It's a lot of personalization. So when you, for instance, play and you level up, then there is an algorithm that reads off your gameplay and sees which game you're playing and which stakes you're playing, and when you're then getting spins back and rewards and these type of things, you're getting them at the value you're playing and at the game you're playing. We have an exploration engine where we have tagged up all the games, and where we have I think there is 180 or 190 tags or something, and sort of gone down the Netflix route in order to present a lobby that makes it easier to find the content that you want and to couple the users with the content you want. And finally, I think we created a really sort of immersive game stage page that lets you really zoom in and forget about the world and just have fun and be immersed in the product. And if you look at it combined, so all the hygiene factors of the state-of-the-art UI and UX and these innovations, it has just proven to be a fantastic user experience, and it's evidenced by the numbers. I checked some KPIs the other day, and if you look at the sort of 100% of depositors that came in the core markets in October, which was the launch month, the 8th of October, then about I think it was something like 38% came back in month 2 and deposited. So in November, but of those, some 35% came back in December. Then that number was increasing. So 100% of the users that came in November, an even higher amount came back in December than sort of the comparable period. And I haven't seen these numbers before, that sort of 35-40% of the users stick around for months and play. And so I think just that focus on the user experience and delivering something that just works, and that where there is many new sort of elements, and that has really worked.
Yeah, and I mean, you can clearly see that. So I have no reference to the numbers if those are high or low, but I take your word for it. But clearly, you know, when you see the numbers stabilizing like that in the depositors and how they come back to play more, it clearly tells a story, obviously, that you've done something right. But I can say from my own perspective, so I would be the typical player. I don't know that much about online casino operators and the UX and UI experience from my own personal experience, but I did register an account at Casino Fridays, your operator, just when you launched the site in October, and I was amazed how the user experience is so crazy straightforward and simple, to the point where, you know, I mean, even my dog Valpen could register an account at Casino Fridays. I mean, it was very, very intuitive and really straightforward, and really into detail, minimizing the friction from entering the site to having deposited into the account. And that was what struck me a little bit of how it stood out against other sites. And I heard other people say similar things, like affiliate friends of mine were saying unsolicited that just have you seen Casino Fridays, how good the user experience is and whatnot. So that's kind of what I can share from my own personal experience.
To the credit of Clayton Tonna and Giuseppe Bellomo and these people that are that meticulous in attention to detail, and they're really good, and they have really succeeded.
Fantastic. Yeah, good on that. And before we leave this, you very, very strangely jumped into this announcement of Quantum, and then immediately we jumped past it. I mean, let's take a step back here a little bit, Robin. I know you can't talk that much about your new product, but this is completely fresh news and whatnot. First of all, congratulations to that. When can we expect more news on that new project on Quantum?
Look, it's no secret I'm fond of your company, Pierre, and what you guys are doing. And when you had iGaming Idol a year ago, then Enrico was kind enough to read out an announcement when I won an award, saying that would be back and it would be insanely great. And later on, we sort of have helped on producing Ichiban, and so I just wanted to use the same forum to announce Quantum. Now it is in development, and it is going well, and it is the most exciting piece of technology I have ever worked with. And when it will be live, I don't know. It can take 3 months, it can take 6. I do think we're going to see some features and innovations coming out of that project that will be used on Ichiban and other operators within not so many months. So stay tuned for some great innovation. The name itself, people think quantum computing and these kind of things. Quantum essentially means sort of the lowest or the smallest source of energy or particle needed to make a change. And we sort of transpired that into the iGaming industry and software and technology, where sort of the smallest change or the smallest event or the smallest particle is events. When you're in the first when you're the first text field of a registration form and you click your cursor over to the next form, that's an event. That's something that's happening. Absolutely everything, whether it's a bet or a spin or a bonus granted or anything that goes on, is recorded in the iGaming industry as an event. And what if we could take all of those events and harmonize sort of the data catalog, create a uniform data standard across the industry, and create a decision engine where you could do anything on the front end, anything on communication, anything on BI with those events, and simplify that in a manner that every professional in the iGaming industry can use it. And that's what we are pursuing.
Amazing, and so many small quantum leaps leads into big innovation. That is kind of what you're going for. So we had this. There was this debate you did a couple of months ago, right? Incremental innovation versus exponential innovation or big innovation. So would you say that what you guys are providing now will be a major step forward? Let's say a major innovation.
Every startup has a large chance of failing. If it succeeds, I think it will be a major step forward and something that can really contribute and benefit the iGaming industry, operators, affiliates, and platform providers, and all of the ecosystem combined. It will be really helpful.
Awesome. Yeah. Looking forward to seeing more. On that subject, by the way, Robin, talking about like innovation and disruption and these other things, it's a topic that is on, especially I would say, a lot of the game suppliers' minds now is the topic of comparing themselves to the wider entertainment industries like Netflix and Xbox, and they are recognizing that we are fighting for the leisure time of our customers against Netflix or Xbox and so forth. And if we bring up the topic of disruption, seeing that COVID is changing the landscape of business in many sectors in general, does this give the iGaming industry any opportunities to disrupt? But also, does it also risk that the iGaming industry can be disrupted? And what could it be disrupted by? It's a big question, I know that.
Absolutely, and in that debate, I mentioned that one of the fastest growing and largest operators in the world now, doing 60-80 million monthly NGR, is EA Sports, and that's their revenues they have on their packs, their player packs that we talked about earlier, which is gambling. You put in money, you have an RNG, you get the randomized output, you win some sort of player. It can be good, it can be bad. That player has a value that you can sell again on the marketplace. It's gambling by default, but the experience is very different from a traditional slot experience. If you see where the gambling industry is heading, there is sort of regulators are imposing restrictions such as there needs to be 5 seconds or 3 seconds or maybe 10 seconds between each game round, and there is max bets on stakes and these type of things. I think we need to produce a different type of content. If you see, one of the most successful slots, if not the most successful slot in 2020 was Money Train 2 from Relax Gaming, and it has bonus feature by I play that slot and I only buy the feature. I'm tired of the base game. I don't sit there and click space, repetitively hours in and hours out. I want to play the bonus game. And I think that bonus game is very different. It's much more sort of content rich. It's much more feature rich. There's a lot more variation as to what can happen than sort of the traditional base games and lines and so forth. And I think you're going to see a lot more than this, that people are going to create whole game round experiences where it's not lasting half a second or so, but it is more you click and then you start an experience. And that's absolutely where we need to innovate. And then we have Then you have other innovation coming out. If you looked at Scribe, for instance, as a game provider, they've taken the old sort of crypto game Bust a Bit, now packed in as a game called Aviator, and that's quickly turning out to be a very successful game in the crypto space, turning over 15-20% of NGR and operators that it is listed on. And if you see those type of games, there is a chat, there is social, there is collective wins, collective losses, those type of things. I think that's really, really interesting, and that's a space we should look closer at.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because would you agree as well that the iGaming industry shouldn't focus that much on competing against each other? Let's say if you ask, for example, Todd Haushalter of Evolution Gaming, the CPO, if you ask him who are your biggest competitor, he's not going to say Playtech, he's not going to say microgaming. He's going to say our biggest competitor is Netflix, our biggest competitor is Xbox. Do you agree with that mindset? And do you see it as a risk that entertainment platforms like Netflix or Xbox potentially could disrupt the iGaming industry? Or do you think that it's two different things?
No, I think we're fighting for people's time online, and people's time online are going up. And are they going to spend it on service X, Y, and Z, or iGaming is absolutely relevant. And he is sort of a testament to what I was just talking about, in that sort of the game shows they have created is more casual. Again, you're buying into a game round that lasts maybe 25-30 seconds. If you play Monopoly and you get to the board, it can last minutes. And it's a different mindset than the traditional games, and they've been hyper successful, and driven the share price of Evolution up to new heights. And I think that's a classical example of sort of the innovation that has to come. And of course, we have to compete with each other, and competition by nature leads to innovation, in my opinion. And what I want to see is the RNG based sort of the classical slot providers going down that direction as well, of trying to create those experiences that Todd is creating with Evolution. If we do that, then we can definitely win more time in a responsible way from those other services online, and change the perception of the industry.
Yeah, it's an interesting just topic to sometimes just a thought experiment to say, because before an industry gets disrupted, it's almost seems that it comes out of the blue, but in hindsight, it's always disruption seems so obvious. And if we look back to, for example, how Nokia was disrupted by Apple, in hindsight, Nokia should have known better, let's say. But at that time, their business model was focused on creating 20 different models of cell phones each year. They all look very different from each other. They all serve a small purpose within this this market, and they completely didn't. They lost they lost the eyes from the ball in the bigger question, which is like the innovation that made Apple what they are today is really the App Store. The touchscreen phone would have come sooner or later from Nokia or whatever, but it was the App Store ecosystem that really created the success of the iPhone, because all of a sudden you put the innovation into the hands of all the developers in the entire world, right? So you have a million different options of customizing the functionality in your phone, which you did not have in the Nokia. And when the train had already left the station, Nokia were not able to establish their own ecosystem in that regard. And same for Microsoft as well, who tried with the Microsoft phone and failed and so forth. So that's like one example of like disruptive technologies. But I mean, there's so many more examples of that. I mean, on a smaller scale, like Tinder disrupting Match.com, because I mean, it's just the culture is what it is. They missed that point. Or for example, Netflix disrupting Blockbuster. It seems so obvious in hindsight, but during that time, it's not really anything that you notice until the disruption happens. So the question is then, what can disrupt the iGaming industry?
Yeah, so I think I have an
And the
answer for
iGaming
that,
industry.
and
Yeah.
provided that we haven't rehearsed this before the
I know this is
interview either, but I'm going to try to answer this as good as
yeah,
I can from my
it's a big
perspective. I
question. I
think
know.
if you look at some of those, companies you just mentioned, and sort of what created the disruptive innovation in the first place, right? It actually started with Microsoft creating a software platform that worked for all hardware platforms, and then later on you saw variations of that, such as the App Store and Salesforce and so forth. If you look at iGaming, that hasn't happened yet, and there is two reasons for that. Main one is that there is a lack of a common standard. So when you go to banking, for instance, you would find like a common data catalog that at least a network of banks are adhering to. And once you have commonality in data and in the open standards, then something very beautiful happens, which is that you allow third-hand parties to innovate and to distribute. So if, for instance, a company, take a company I like in the iGaming industry that is having some success at the moment, Blue Ribbon, that is providing sort of gamified jackpots, and they're doing a really good job. Now, when they launch their application, since there is sort of no common data catalog to sort of adhere to, then every single time they need to integrate a new operator, there is a process that will take 2, 3, 4, 5 months. And that's slowing us down. Now, what if there was a common data catalog that made it possible for Blue Ribbon to just build according to it? And once that was done, they were already technically integrated with all the operators adhering to that standard. Then suddenly the application in itself would be compatible immediately. And that would give us the innovation pacing and speed that we require. And for sort of that third-hand party innovation to happen, for there to be thousands of app developers that can sort of risk monetizing their own time and effort, you need to have that open standard. So I think an innovation that should be pursued in iGaming is definitely that sort of open standard that allows the ecosystem to be connected. And the reason why this hasn't happened is for regulation, because since regulation is sort of so fast paced and emerging, then changes are happening that makes it almost impossible to introduce such a standardized set of data. And once that sort of calms down a little bit, and once that is getting more established and companies are adhering more to those standards, I think you will start to see these solutions appearing, and then companies will get their sort of bottlenecks eliminated, and third-hand party app developers can sell at whatever price point they want, and they don't have the huge risk of building up large sales teams and key account teams that need to explain everything. And then you're coming more to a sort of Apple or Salesforce ecosystem that is very interesting. But openness is the key to allow for such an innovation.
Yeah, it's very interesting, and I mean, even looking into innovations like Megaways, for example, where the innovation itself in the math model is really impressive. What we Big Time Gaming did, but more so, what I think is really cool with that innovation is the fact that their main competitors, like NetEnt, are actually publishing the Megaways and putting the Big Time Gaming logo on their own games.
Precisely.
So, what was that?
But there you have it, precisely. There you have it.
Yeah,
that openness
exactly.
that Nick and the guys have enabled is allowing the sort of industry ecosystem to come together around a better user experience.
Yes, and what it enables is, if you sit in it had to be someone like an innovator like Nick that really pursue this crazy idea that we're gonna create this and then we're gonna license it. Like everyone, I would imagine that people will think like, there's no way that NetEnt is going to license a math model from a competing company and actually put the logo on there. But what it does is that it enables you to think in those terms. So when you think about innovation, all of a sudden the doors are open for collaboration between competitors to that extent, which never happened before. But all of a sudden those doors are now open because it's been done once, it's been tested, it's been successful, and the threshold to do it a second time is much lower now. I think that is what you're saying is really the key. Yeah, industry collaboration and open doors.
Yeah, I don't know Nick myself, but he must be really smart, because what he did was to embrace that openness, and I think he has scaled Megaways a hell of a lot faster than he would have done on his own, using sort of proprietary games, and by allowing people to tap into the technology. Say, for instance, when Gonzo Quest went Megaways, right, it became a better game, and arguably, and as such, has helped a number of companies actually improve their product and their service. And I think this is precisely the model we need to embrace. Be more open-minded about helping each other and combining assets in order to drive the user experience forward.
Yeah, I agree. I would say, so if the industry can come to that point where the doors are so open for collaboration between competitors, then that increases the chances of the disruption coming from within the industry, right? So, which is good. We want that type of disruption. I think the danger is always if there is another industry that disrupts iGaming. So if we take a step back, 30 years ago, you and me would have been working in the Ichiban land-based casino right here or whatever. And if we were in a land-based casino 30 years ago, and we would have this podcast, which would have not happened through the internet, it would be a videotaped conversation instead.
Yes.
Then we would ask the question, what can disrupt the casino industry? And the answer to that we know now. The answer to that is the iGaming industry, because the iGaming industry is in the process of disrupting land-based, right?
Absolutely.
So that is like kind of, okay, where can the danger come from? I think, like, just to, as a playing with a thought experiment, what if all these micropayments games, like Candy Crush, for example, they decide one day that we're gonna turn the switch. We're gonna make this into a real money game, and just like DraftKings figured out a way how to charge for kind of sports betting, but circumventing the US regulation on sports betting at that time. Maybe there is a way for Candy Crush and the other microtransaction payments companies to circumvent the regulation in a way where they can come much closer to what an iGaming experience is, using the like insane databases that they have and that Facebook have, for example. Maybe then Facebook will decide to turn the switch and create their own games that are kind of threatening the iGaming industry. Maybe that is a disruption that we need to just be aware of, kind of thing. It's healthy to think in those terms.
And I think what you're describing is already ongoing at a large basis. Better Collective, another fantastic company, they bought HLTV, which is a Counter-Strike forum, and Counter-Strike obviously having millions of users. And when you play Counter-Strike, they drop skins that make you look cooler and better. And when you have invested a lot of time in a game and a ranking, then it is kind of cool to look a little bit special. And therefore, these skins are having value. Some are more rare than others, and therefore they are costing more money. And you can sell those, or you can even gamble those on gambon.com, for instance. Yeah. But my point is that HLTV then was sold to, I can't remember it, but I think Better Collective bought it for like 30 million. And that's an example of sort of how a very large audience was unpacked, how they are closer to gambling. There is randomness, there is value, there is buy and sell, basically. Buy with your time and sell at a price. And the example I mentioned with the FIFA earlier, I think it's the same. So I wouldn't see this as a threat, actually, as a danger, sort of more the opposite, that when we talked earlier on in the call about how sort of legitimizing the iGaming industry, then I think if we can create a product that is closer to mainstream, that more people will enjoy, then, and these type of actors can move in, then obviously the industry will grow tremendously. And oh God, I use a Trump word. He's saying tremendously all the time.
Tremendous. It's happening. It's happening, Robin.
I need to stop. I need to stop now. He's on everybody's top of mind.
Tremendous quote.
Yes. So I think we shouldn't see this as a danger. I think we should see it as a way to increase the cake and perhaps attract talent and professionals, which has complementary skill sets that needs our value, what we have learned over the last 10, 20, 25 years. And I welcome that, and I hope the iGaming industry can make their leaps, whilst the other sort of e-commerce sectors are making their leaps in order to amalgamate this.
Yeah, yeah. Robin, you gave me a trip down memory lane by mentioning Counter Strike and this everything. That's the environment I was raised in when I was in my teenage years.
Were you good?
Yeah, some semi-professional Counter Strike player. That's what I was. But at that time there was no money, no nothing in it, and I was a little bit before my time in that in that respect. I should have stuck to it. I saw actually during that time there was the most famous player ever was called Heaton. He was I don't know. Were you in that world as well? Yeah. You were.
I never played Counter Strike. Yeah, I was more of a strategy game person, but
Okay.
yeah, I picked up the name from the scene. Yes.
Yeah. Heaton. He was. I mean, he was a household name between in the teenage boy world at that time. You know, and the guy is still really famous. Like he's a legend in the industry now. And I saw that actually, Classy Beef, which is a casino streamer. They designed Heaton as a streamer, which I thought was pretty funny.
Well done. How smart.
Yeah. Good acquisition actually by them. Robin, before we close things off today, this is the last topic I want to jump over to, completely different. But the news came out 2 days ago here, or yesterday even, that Shay Segav is leaving Entain. And I just thought that there was a little bit of a fascinating topic to just talk a little bit about, because he was only the CEO at Entain for a couple of months. You know, he stepped up recently to become the CEO after having been COO for a long time, and obviously mantling that big role in a huge company like Entain. They just announced a rebrand, and they are kind of undergoing this process of MGM wanted to acquire them. They said no twice to two bids of MGM, and they are expecting there to be a third bid soon. And I just thought that the timing of all of this is obviously strange in some ways. This is happening in a very successful basis. That a CEO would leave after just a couple of months is not for a huge company that's undergoing that much change. It's not the norm, let's say. Shay is going to he's taking a job as the CEO of DAZN, which is a large sports streamer, a streaming platform basically. And I don't know, Robbie, we spoke a little bit about this before. You aren't that read into this, but I want to ask you, like, I mean, you know, you have CEO experience yourself from listed companies and this thing, and isn't it something that is seems a little bit that there has to be a little bit more behind this the news, so to say? We are speculating now. We have no information whatsoever here.
Well, one thing my experience from listed companies tells me is that there is a lot more behind the news than what comes out in public releases, at least. But like you said, I don't know Shay, and I haven't read myself up on it, and I think it would be immature of me to speculate too much on what's going on. But you know, looking far outside of the window, one cannot ignore that there is a looming transaction that is ongoing. And I think the second aspect that is interesting is his destination, right? And you know, we have long speculated that sort of the big sort of media, or you know, sports media rights companies would embrace gambling to a further extent. And I think it is interesting if these large companies actually want to have gambling experience on board in their executive teams. Because I find it quite weird that you sort of, when you're watching sports online increasingly these days, I watch all my Premier League matches online, and that you can't sort of place a bet directly in the browser and place a bet there and then with the actual you know, with the actual service that you're streaming the sports betting website from, and that you have to go for sort of a third party app or a secondary device. And I'd presume, you know, if I were those, you know, media rights is going up. You know, I'm part of, you know, I'm part owner in a company supporting a football club myself in Norway, and I see sort of what's happening in those processes when they're selling the league rights and these things, and the prices are just going up, and they're going to go increasingly to this what you call streaming-based actors in the marketplace. And to fight for those prices, I presume they want to take over more of the value chain and take some of the bets that is happening on their service. You know, when I'm placing a bet with whatever Bet365 Unibet on my secondary device, my phone, I'm sort of piggybacking the journalistic experience that ultimately the broadcaster is producing, right? And that these people are interested in taking parts of the cake of that action they're creating, that I find interesting, and perhaps you will see something coming out of those type of hires.
Yeah, talk about disruption. I mean, if companies like DAZN or others who are streaming sports would decide to go to sports betting, implementing having this massive platform where users sign up primarily because they want to watch sports, but they can also use the same platform to place bets. I mean, that's a paradigm shift in the sportsbook world that we're talking about.
When we founded GiG Sports, and when we tried to really pull it off in sports, unfortunately we weren't able to. It's a very complicated vertical and very competitive vertical, but that was actually part of the vision here. That can we build a platform? Can we build a fully integrated platform? Can we partner with one of these streaming companies? That was very often talked about in the management of GiG, and I really think sort of, if it is so hard from experienced industry players to build a sportsbook and to do it properly these days, then imagine how hard it is for these larger media companies that are much, much larger than the iGaming industry, and sort of to find a symbiosis there. And we talked earlier about mergers and acquisitions. There's happening a lot from the US at the moment that I think some of these acquisitions will be very, very value accretive and very interesting to see happening.
Yeah, we just cracked the entire strategy of DAZN here, Robin. let's hope that this podcast stays live. But it's super interesting perspective. Actually, I didn't think about that until you said it, but that makes a lot of sense. Actually, it'll be interesting to see what's going to happen on that front. We definitely have to follow it. And I guess the second takeaway here then is the looming transaction of MGM trying to acquire Entain. And if you are Shay Segev, and we are completely speculating here, obviously, and of course, but if you are Shay Segev and you have a looming this looming transaction about to happen, you must think, what's this going to happen to me, of course. And if this behind closed doors is pretty much a done deal, then the timing is, and you get this type of offer that you maybe would have thought twice before in different circumstances, then you would perhaps jump on board that time of opportunity. Again, we are just completely speculating here now, but
it's fun to speculate.
Yeah, it's fun to speculate. So I mean, let's see what happens. I mean, shall we bet €10 and see if within a month that there is a deal between, or let's say like this, a third bid from MGM to Entain. What do you think?
I think that bid is going to come. It makes such a sense from a strategic perspective. And so if we were to make a bet, I want to be on the side of the event happening.
Okay, for the spirit of gambling, which we both love, I will take the bet against that, even though I think that you are right. But we'll put €10 on it. It's the 12th of January today, so on the 12th of February, let's see if we have any news coming out of that.
At least a third bid would have been made, and if they have time to respond with policy.
Okay, we'll do a virtual handshake then, and we agree to that. So okay, we have a bet. Robin, it's been fantastic today. The time is absolutely flying. I'm looking forward to come back to Marbella soon and say hi, by the way. And, I'm looking forward to it, and it's always nice to chat to you, Robin. This is the second time we do this podcast, and I hope that we can do more in the future again. It's always really interesting. So thank you so much, Robin.
Thank you, Pierre. Thank you.
Thank you. Cool.